What if we could unpack the deep origins of proteins, which are the most complex molecules that we know of in the universe? What if we could understand how complexity arises at the molecular level? What if we could create new proteins by studying the process that generated ancient proteins to develop new kinds of drugs and delivery systems that could assist on numerous fronts in the world of medicine? What if understanding the past could give us a blueprint for building the future? I grew up as essentially a middle-class immigrant in the United Arab Emirates in Sharjah. I went to school in Dubai, a place where the majority of the population is actually immigrants. Having been an immigrant, my entire life has brought some interesting perspectives. I think the first thing you learn as an immigrant is many different cultures and points of view can be mutually exclusive at first blush, but you can actually synthesize them in interesting ways as you navigate life in these large cosmopolitan spaces. The United Arab Emirates. It's a wealthy, developed nation, but despite the economic opportunities, one thing that was sort of lacking there was a direct exposure to nature. At least where we were growing up was essentially concrete, punctuated by sandy lots. A lot of my engagement with it actually came through reading, exposure to television. I loved National Geographic or Carl Sagan. They gave me a window into scales of time and space that seemed utterly removed from my daily experience. One place I did get that was in India, when I visited Kerala in South India, which is this dense tropical environment full of life on a scale that just has no rival in the UAE. I enjoy the world of the mind, of imagination. I love curiosity and creativity, and they're very core to who I am as a person. I've always loved creating art. As a kid, I had what could be called a distractible mind. There's almost nothing under the sun that doesn't excite me, whether it be history or philosophy or science. I must have been 12 or 13 at the time. But I remember telling my mom when she asked me what kind of job I wanted to have, I said, I want to do a job where I have to think. And I remember her being slightly puzzled by that.
The crazy fact about this that I learned when it's making that horrible noise, it's actually creating bubbles that are the temperature of the sun inside there.
When I was a teenager, I first encountered a picture of a protein structure of hemoglobin, which is one of the first proteins for which we actually had a solved structure. And what immediately struck me about it is its incredible intricacy, its incredible complexity and beauty. What really impacted me was thinking about how nature could have possibly produced such a complex structure. I want to be the person who provides a satisfying, coherent theory for the origination of protein complexity. So what we're trying to do in my lab is to understand how evolution generates biophysically and biochemically novel structures and functions. And by unpacking the process by which this blind stochastic process of evolution can generate complex structures, we not only answer a very fundamental question about the problem of origins, but also reveal principles and approaches that we can use to build proteins of our own, rivaling the complexity of what we find in nature, aided by computation. With the aid of computation and statistics and access to the diversity of proteins that exist today, we have a lens that we can use to look back into the past. We can actually resurrect proteins that have been long extinct and actually produce them in the lab. And even though science is an imperfect process, we have unprecedented access to actually answering questions about the origins of the universe, of life, of complexity in the context of proteins. You should always focus on leaning into your strengths and shoring up your weaknesses. Things that many people may regard as weaknesses in one context can be a huge strength in another context. Being distractible is the flip side of being creative. It's actually a huge strength in the process of ideation. And I had the good fortune of having mentors that actually encouraged my creativity and independence, encouraged me to aggressively ideate and view science as a mode of self-expression. And I hope I can, impress upon my mentees and the people who join the lab that there are many ways to be a scientist.
Oh, what do I like the smell? Well, it's a terrible smell, but it implies that we've produced plenty of protein.
I've always been one of those people who thinks that regular life is quite mundane, and science gives me access to these scales of reality that are almost mythological. By asking what if, we have access to additional layers of beauty and awe, both in what evolution has produced and what it's possible for humans to build? What if solving the philosophical problem of origins can actually teach us how to fight disease on a very practical level? What if proteins aren't actually irreducibly complex? What if science is a road to awe?